New health care bill fully approved and ready to go. So what's next? Joining us is CNN senior economics analyst and former senior economic advisor for the Trump campaign, Stephen Moore, and Andy Slavitt. He is the former acting administrator of the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. Great to have both of you gentlemen here. Stephen, Senator John McCain said yesterday that he thought that this bill, the latest incarnation of the Senate bill, is basically dead in the water. Do you agree?
Boy, Republicans are having a tough time getting this through the Senate, Allison. There's no question about it because, you know, they've got to get to 50 votes, and they're not at 50 right now. And every time Mitch McConnell tries to move the bill a little bit to the right, he loses some of the more moderate Republicans, and sometimes when he tries to move it to the left, he loses conservatives. So it's a very delicate balancing act. I'm of the opinion, Allison, that as long as you've got those headlines out there that say 20 million people are going to lose their health insurance coverage, it's not going to fly. I think Republicans have to convince American people we can reduce costs, we can provide more choice and competition in health care, reduce your premiums, but in a way that's not going to force 20 million people to lose their coverage.
Right, and Andy, that's where you come in. I mean, if they want to reduce costs, understand, laudable goal, but then you reduce services and coverage. And so it's very hard to have it both ways. And as you know, the essential health benefits are something that a lot of Americans have come to rely upon. The addiction treatment, help for opioid crisis. So what do you think is going to happen next?
Well, I think what's happening, and I think Stephen's correct, is that senators, nothing like spending time at home to come back with the view that Americans really don't want to see this repealed. They want to see improvements. We want to see improvements to all of our legislation. But a new poll that's out Friday shows that Republicans have a drop in their favorability. The Senate drops in their favorability 30 points when told that they favor repeal. So they understand that this is an issue that no one wants to see costs go up. No one wants to see services taken away from low-income people, and no one wants to see their premiums up and people cut from coverage. So they're going to have to take a step back with that and move in a different direction.
Stephen, what about the plan that now many senators are talking about, and including the president has mentioned this, just repeal it, okay? If we can't figure out how to replace it, if we can't work out the kinks, let's just repeal it because that's what we promised. Do voters want that? What would happen then?
Well, let me say this. I mean, we just did have an election, and I would make the case the election was a kind of voter mandate to repeal Obamacare. Republicans won 3 overwhelming elections with that message. Every Republican virtually who ran for the Senate and the House ran on promising to repeal this bill.
Right, but so maybe something's changed since then. I mean, just in terms of even if you look at the polls, it's gotten more popular.
Right. Here is why the opinion has changed, because the voters aren't too wild about the Republican bill, and so they're kind of saying, well, if it's Obamacare or the Republican bill, we'll take Obamacare. That's why I think Republicans have to revisit this issue and say, look, convince the American people we can do this. We can use free market reforms that got the worst features of Obamacare. By the way, Allison, I think the essential benefit feature of Obamacare is one of the worst features because it's what's driven up the cost of health care. It means young, healthy people have to buy health insurance, plans that cost them 2 or 3 times what they could cost if they could just have a scaled-back plan
but
that covers them for the things they want.
But isn't that the math? I mean, isn't the math of insurance, all kinds of insurance, that healthy people pay in for a rainy day and that sick people use the money?
Well, here's the thing. This is a fundamental kind of philosophical disagreement, I think, with liberals and conservatives. Health insurance should work like auto insurance. If I have a very good driving record, Allison, and you don't, I shouldn't have to pay the same premiums as you do. If someone, look, we know that a lot of health outcomes, about at least half, have to do with people's personal decisions, about smoking, about overeating, about not exercising, about not getting enough sleep. It's not fair for people who lead healthy lifestyles to have to pay more for their insurance for people who don't. I mean, wouldn't you agree with that premise?
Well, let me ask Andy. Andy, you're in the thick of this. So what about that premise?
Well, look, Stephen's premise is about to get tested when Ted Cruz's amendment gets introduced this week. And I have to tell you, for many people, that's a non-starter because what it does is it takes the protections in the Affordable Care Act, the protections against pre-existing conditions, lifetime caps, essential benefits, and it basically prices sick people out of that market, and it creates 2 worlds, 2 pools, a very expensive pool for anybody who makes over $40,000 a year, who has any illness, and then another pool for younger, healthier people. And I can tell you, I've been in healthcare a long time. Our problem is not finding 27-year-old people who make $70,000 a year affordable insurance policies. There's a few million people in that category, but the real problem in this country is really figuring out how to take care of the people who need it the most.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you very much. We will see what happens this week. Stephen Moore, Andy Slavitt, thank you.